going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
This effort, and China has big plans for this. They intend to seed their digital yuan into the global environment by giving it away to visitors at next winter's Olympics. When they arrive at the airport, they're going to get yuan digital wallets. They're going to receive digital yuan. They're going to use it throughout their visits to Beijing, and then they're going to take it back to their home countries. They see this as a huge advantage. Why? Because who controls the underlying protocols, who controls the underlying standards of the future of money will control the future of money.
Quite a bit now. Before, Bitcoin was very, very inefficient because of the transaction block processing time. Then Ethereum kind of came along. And then you've got blockchains like Phantom, Matic, and Avalanche, where you can essentially use USDC, USDT, MAI, and DAI, these stable coins on top to actually transact. And most of the transactions, even we're seeing here at the conference, and even how we're paying our vendors now, are using stable coins of cryptocurrencies, because of stable coins are actually starting to happen. And some of the projects we want to talk about, even on the show, like Tomb.com, which is essentially high yield farming. So a lot of people now can take their stable coins and cryptocurrencies and park them into DeFi projects and earn yields of upwards from 10% to like 100 to 200%.
And expectations are growing now for a potentially much more hawkish response from the Federal Reserve to try to curb inflation. And senior economics reporter Steve Leisman joins us now with more. Hi, Steve.
Morning, Joe. Yeah, stronger inflation and hawkish comments from Fed officials prompting a reset in expectations for tighter interest rate policy this year. The new forecast, 4 hikes plus QT, and upside risk to that forecast. Here's the Fed probabilities. A March rate hike now a near certainty as priced by futures market at 95%. A second hike in June carries an 85% probability, according to Refinitiv. And the third hike is baked in for July, or more likely September, with strong odds now of a fourth hike now in December. But that's just what's priced into rates. Fed observers also expect QT, or quantitative tightening. With growing agreement, the Fed will also reduce its balance sheet this year. That's the equivalent of another rate hike or two, depending upon what models you use. And some believe the Fed could or should do more. Goldman Sachs writing that 4 hikes plus QT may not be enough. It said, if the FOMC wants to be a more active contributor to bringing down inflation, then it will need to do enough to tighten financial conditions materially. They have not tightened very materially at all. And Bill Ackman chiming in with a series of tweets this weekend, writing the Federal Reserve could work to restore its credibility with an initial 50 basis point surprise move to shock and awe the market, which would demonstrate its resolve on inflation. The Fed is losing the inflation battle and is behind where it needs to be. To be sure, there are some out there, our friend Ian Shepardson from Pantheon, who see the recent round of weak economic data suggesting these hawkish forecasts are a bit ahead of themselves. But the strong trend right now has been to raise the outlook for Fed tightening, with much depending upon how much help the Fed gets from the market itself tightening financial conditions. As you know, Joe, if the market does more, the Fed could have to do less.
Plant-based meats, mainstream now. They're turning up on more supermarket shelves and fast food menus all over the place. Many plant-based meats are made from things like soybeans and veggies and quinoa. But now, something different. One company is trying to put the meat back in meat alternatives. And some investors are betting big. Here's CNBC's Kate Rogers.
This is real chicken, and so is this and this. Except it's made in labs and commercial food production facilities instead of being raised on a farm. It's called cultivated meat, made from the cells of animals, and is part of a burgeoning industry seeking regulatory approval. Eat Just is the first company to have approval to sell its cultivated chicken products in Singapore.
It is real meat And instead of needing billions of animals and all the land and the water and all the rainforest you typically need to knock down to make that happen, we start with a cell. And you can get the cell from a biopsy of an animal, a fresh piece of meat, or a cell bank. Now we don't need the animal anymore. Then we identify nutrients, think feed to feed that cell, and then we make it. And we make it in a stainless steel vessel called a bioreactor.
Fewer than 1,000 customers have tried it so far, but its CEO envisions a future where it's sold from street carts to Michelin star restaurants. Beyond regulators, the biggest hurdles for the industry are bringing down sky-high production costs and explaining to consumers what this is and why it's beneficial for the planet.
So our food system's role in climate change is generally underappreciated, but industrial animal agriculture is a major contributor. And so alternative proteins, including cultivated meat, can be a key aspect of how we reduce the emissions from our food system.
And while all eyes are on U.S. regulators, investors have been pouring into this space with a global $2 billion invested over the last 2 years. But believers say that so far, this is still underinvested as a potential climate change.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And guys, I come back with that video just to make you think. I just uploaded a video to the stock channel, so make sure you don't miss out. But this video is definitely going to make you think. Now, guys, as we move into this bear market, staking is going to be very, very important. I just want to make sure you understand that. But as we can see, the Fed wants to drain the market. But what we're going to do is we're going to watch the Fed. Are they going to raise rates in this meeting, or are they going to wait until March? Census say they're going to wait until March. But, guys, we don't have to guess anymore. Only thing we have to do is follow the money, follow the Fed. And guys, they're one step ahead of us eating that printed 3D food. They're one step ahead. Now they got your food being grown out of a lab. Instead of the chef making your food, it's the scientist. Guys, we're living a real life movie. Remember, your life is an illusion. TV is your reality. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you that you'll be printing your food in the next 5 years. And then lastly, guys, we have 5G. That's right, 5G is taking off. And guys, they've done plenty of research on 5G. If you're part of my Patreon, you know, they've done plenty of research. They know what's going to happen. Even though Shepard says that Europe is using 5G and doing well, guys, we can see the proof. We know he's not telling us the truth. 5G is spotted across the globe. But eventually they're going to turn it up with what? Skynet. That's the whole point of all these satellites being launched. Guys, we know they plan on powering smart cities with 5G. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you, because he knows. When it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Several airline CEOs are issuing a dire warning. The 5G rollout plan for tomorrow could interfere with flight instruments and make a number of wide-body aircraft unusable. Phil LeBeau joins us right now with more. And Phil, this has kind of been percolating for a while, but this is the moment when the deadline actually hits that, hey, there is a lot of fallout here.
And Becky, we should know by the middle of today, maybe late afternoon, early evening, whether or not this truly leads to either cancellations or the airline saying, you know what, we're going to bring back our schedule because we're concerned about flights going to certain airports like Seattle, like Chicago O'Hare. Those are two airports where there's genuine concern within the industry that there could be 5G interference with the radio altimeters in some of the aircraft that are landing there. So here's the situation. 5G deployment, it's effectively going to be turned on tomorrow. That's the plan at midnight, 12:01 a.m. on Wednesday. Airlines, cargo operators may cancel flights. All of the major CEOs issued a warning yesterday in a joint letter. The carriers concerned interference from 5G close to airports within 2 miles could cause interference. In their letter yesterday, the airline CEOs, along with Airlines for America, said unless our major hubs are cleared to fly, the vast majority of the traveling and shipping public will essentially be grounded. Steve Dixon, who runs the FAA, has also issued basically what their analysis shows in terms of the number of planes that are cleared to land in tricky conditions, and they say it's about 45%. So they say 5G flights or 5G will affect flights, and that could happen unless there is some type of a resolution that is reached. Meanwhile, JetBlue CEO Robin Hayes, sending a letter to the staff yesterday, said that the airline must prepare for the worst, the possibility of canceling or scratching future flights. And then you've got American and United. They both report Q4 results this week. Keep in mind that United issued a warning yesterday, essentially saying that 5G could impact up to 1.25 million United customers. This ultimately comes down to what happens with Verizon and AT&T, who, along with Sprint, they paid $82 billion for the 5G spectrum that was auctioned off during the Trump administration. They have said that they have worked with the airlines, that this is safe and ready to go. Nonetheless, you guys, this ultimately comes down to the FAA, the FCC, and the Biden administration. They're going to have to work something out, because at this point, the airlines will start canceling flights, and that's when you will start to see people saying, wait a second, is this really as big of a deal as the airlines are warning, or is this something that can be managed more effectively? Remember, we've already had a 2-week delay. This was supposed to go into effect on January 5th, so it will all play out over the next 24 to 48 hours.
Wireless carriers really laid into the FAA. They say the agency had 2 years to prepare, and yet here we are. But the FCC did years of analysis and said all would be well. What happened? Why wasn't the FAA ready for this?
Well, I'm not sure that the FAA it should get quite the commentary that they got from AT&T. The FCC may have done a couple years of analysis, but they're not required, and they didn't do an analysis of aviation safety. It's just not in the process, and that's one of the things that has to change going forward. Spectrum is a finite resource, and this is going to happen again. So they need to get that process locked down. FAA, over a year and a half ago, while I was still there, wrote a letter to the NTIA and raised the flag about the concerns about 5G transmission in aviation. But there needs to be a more robust process, certainly.
Yeah, as you know, 5G is widely used in Europe. No apparent problems with any flights at all. Why and how is this different?
Well, I can't really speak to what Europe has done, other than
except that it's working fine there.
Well, they also have a different buffer band than we have here. All their operators are operating at different power levels. These interference issues are all about proximity of stations and the power level each station has, which there's an infinite variety of permutations you can have with that. The other thing is that telecom companies are not very forthcoming about their plans of where they're going to put stations, what kind of power. It's a competitive thing. And so, it's really hard to gather that information in a way that the FAA can act in a more timely manner than they currently do. I think the process needs to start earlier and be more transparent.
We're looking at interagency turf battles. Doesn't this go all the way to the top at the FAA? I mean, if we're telling the truth about it?
Well, technically, there's quite a collection of technicians and engineers that look at these things. There is no final authority that writes off or signs off on a telecommunication company transmitting, and that's part of the issue. FAA found out about the plan for 5G and then had its engineers look at it some time ago and saw that there could be an issue. It's a process that needs to be more formalized and needs to start earlier. That's for sure.
Yeah, earlier than a few hours before it starts. Daniel Elwell, good of you to be here. Thank you.
The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids' books. I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID Stories 3. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.